Part 1. Denial. Animals have a funny way of coming into someone's life exactly when they needed them the most, and Bella Ray was no exception. The only exception was that she was a 1,500-pound animal that I obviously couldn't keep inside the house. She knew exactly what I needed at the time, and although she's no longer with me, her memory remains. I bought Bella in the fall of 2018, but I didn't dare tell my parents until the winter of 2019. I knew they wouldn't approve of my decision, so I tried to keep it hidden for as long as I could. For 7 grueling months, I worked 2 jobs as a CNA, pushing myself to the limit to pay for this creature that would soon change my life. Eventually, the truth came out one night when I finally decided to tell my mom about my purchase. At the time, she wasn't happy with me, as most parents wouldn't be. I mean, who could reasonably afford a horse on the income level I was making back then? But that didn't matter. What mattered was that I was fulfilling my dream I'd carried close to my heart ever since I was first introduced to horses back in 2006. My passion for horses and my introduction to the equine world was unconventional as they come. It was almost entirely by accident that I encountered the full reality of what it meant to care for a horse. 5 years after my father's original cancer diagnosis, my parents made the decision to move out into the country, leaving the city of my hometown behind. It took a full year before the manufactured home they purchased was finally set up and furnished. This brought us to 2005, the same year my father had a horrific reaction to his prescribed medication. I was helping him landscape the yard on our new property while he was trying to mow the grass up a slight slope. Suddenly, the riding lawnmower flipped completely over on top of him. Thankfully, the blades were spinning upwards and away from him. After cutting the engine, I managed to flip the heavy machine off of him and helped my dad inside the house. A few hours later, the crisis truly began. He started to yowl and scream in agonizing pain as angry red blisters began to rapidly forming across his skin. While my father lay helplessly in bed, covered only by a thin white sheet because every inch of his body screamed in pain and was raw to the touch, my yard work for the day was dismissed. Unable to comprehend or even fathom what had just transpired, I needed to escape the suffocating weight of that house. I decided to take a long bike ride through the countryside, trying to clear my head of the horrific accident that could have easily killed my father. The harrowing thoughts echoed throughout my entire bike ride until I eventually stopped alongside the property line. There, behind a thin metal gate, a chestnut gelding grazed contentedly. Every now and then, he would look up at me, toss his mane, and quietly return to the grass. After a long minute of standing there and taking in the peaceful scenery, I turned to make my way up the hill. That was when I was greeted by an old man sitting on the front porch. His face was deeply weathered, his clothes were soiled from a day's work, and his thin white hair caught the light. He welcomed me with a toothy grin and called out a friendly hello. I introduced myself. Right then and there, every day after, it became my routine to ride out and visit with him, and listen to him talk about his younger years. A few days after being bedridden, my father was back on his feet, making a slow and steady recovery. After the blisters popped, his skin was forever changed. Splotches of white and red pigment covered his body where the scar tissue had formed. He quickly learned to only work outside when the sun wasn't as bright and to always use proper protection from the UV light. For the rest of the summer and thereafter, as soon as my chores were finished, I took a bike ride to visit the old man. Our days consisted of sitting on the porch together until the sun went down, which was my cue to finally head home for supper. The following days melded into a blur as the summer started to wane, transitioning back into the school year. Yet every weekend that followed was filled with excitement and adventure. I ended up spending the next 3 summers visiting the old man and learning how to ride his horse, a development that came as a complete shock to me. Although I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing at the time, the process of overcoming my fear and learning how to become truly present in the moment while caring for that animal has stuck with me all these years. However, by the end of the 3rd summer, a sudden tragedy struck, leaving my world completely broken and shattered. I woke up that weekend eager to see the old man once again, But as I sat down for breakfast, my mom came to give me the devastating news she read in the paper. The old man I cherished, the man who'd given me so many fond memories, had passed away. Heartbroken and completely devastated, I skipped breakfast and headed straight down to his house. I had to see it for myself. The home was empty except his primary caretaker, his wife. When I walked down to the barn to see Shiloh, the chestnut horse, my heart shattered completely. He was not in his paddock, nor was he in the barn. My world came to a screeching halt. The year 2009 was a bitter pill for me to swallow. I was going through a chaotic motions of puberty, trying to manage my own life and struggling to overcome grief that had shaken my world to its core. I spent many days isolated and mourning, but that doesn't mean I wasn't productive. Instead, I recognized opportunities that came my way and took them at face value. I began volunteering to work with horses and individuals with special needs, eager to learn and understand how to care for these animals in a much broader scope. From December 2010 to May of 2013, I kept myself busy entering the workforce, working as a janitor and a housekeeper at an assisted living facility, working closely with individuals who are often disabled, wheelchair-bound, or simply lonely, inspired me to take on a much bigger role. I left my job in 2013 to pursue my certification to become a certified nursing assistant, CNA. From 2014 to 2018, I worked at various locations ranging from group homes to home health care to assisted living facilities to full-on care at residential CBRF, community-based residential facilities. The invaluable skills I acquired during my years as a CNA would soon come in handy in ways I could never anticipate when I had to take care of my own father later on in life. At the time, I thought I was just building a career. I had no idea that the universe was actually equipping me with the exact skills, strength, and patience I would soon need to care for my own father as his world faded. Fast forward to my adolescent years in 2018, that is when I finally purchased my first horse, leaning heavily on the values and lasting lessons that old man had taught me. Eventually, I told my parents that I had been saving every penny to care for our horse that had been presented to me at the ranch where I volunteered. While working as a CNA, I spent my daytime, weekend hours volunteering at a horse ranch with a gentleman I had grown incredibly fond of. Even in the evenings, I'd leave the ranch to go to work, my second job as a caregiver, just a few miles up the road. It had given me a profound sense of purpose and duty. I spent countless hours working with Bella. I leaned in how to trust her, how to read her body language, and how to care for her properly through hands-on experience. She turned out to be the best teacher I could ever ask for. Not only was she broke to ride, but she was patient and kind enough to forgive me for the mistakes I made while I was figuring it all out. Even though Bella and I were incredibly happy together, doing everything side by side and learning from each other's mistakes, little did I know that my world would soon be turned upside down. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere, as the fate would have it. My dad would soon develop ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It didn't show his full face at first. Instead, it started as a simple fall in the kitchen one fateful night.